Oral questions. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we have a broken education system, and I want to help fix it. So again today, and as long as it takes, I will extend the hand of cooperation to the Premier and to the Minister of Education. This is not about looking for blame. It's about an opportunity for the Premier and the Minister to take the initiative and the responsibility to fix it. When only 20% of our grade 6 students are achieving acceptable performance in math and science, and only 50% in reading and writing, we have a catastrophic situation on our hands. This compares with Nova Scotia achieving 70% levels, Alberta at 85% levels. I understand that this is the second year that grade 6 students were assessed, last year being the first time this was done, and those results framed as a pilot. Has the Premier seen the results from last year, and will he share those results with the House?
The Honourable the Premier.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that the Leader of the Opposition wants to help, but Mr. Speaker, I think it's difficult to believe him when he says that he wants to help, but he still haven't accepted to receive a briefing on our education plan. Last week, he started saying that the education system is broken. He started saying that he doesn't like our plan, but despite this, he didn't accept our invitation to be briefed on the plan. So he comes here today and he says that he wants to help. He says that he wants to work with us, but he doesn't even want to have the information of our plan can provide to New Brunswickers. But Mr. Speaker, I'm going to tell you what it will do. It will help teachers to have the flexibility required to have an education plan that will help develop young people. Mr. Speaker, it will also help us supporting them financially. Mr. Speaker, we are very proud of our plan. It was built with New Brunswickers.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to that briefing, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend the first one, but I'll certainly attend the second one. Mr. Speaker, the Program for International Student Assessment began the first survey in the year 2000. Their emphasis rotates every 3 years between reading, mathematics, and science. In 2003, the emphasis was on mathematics. In all 5 areas surveyed that year, New Brunswick performed significantly lower than the Canadian average. My point being is that this is not a new problem, and I would suggest further evidence that the system has been broken for some time. Last week, I asked the Premier if an analysis of the recently released education assessments is being done, and when we might expect the results. I did not get an answer, so I'll ask it again. Is an analysis being done, and can we get the results? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the member opposite, we are analyzing every day in the Department of Education Early Childhood Development, and I have to say that I've been touring the province over the last 6 months as the new Minister of Education Early Childhood Development, meeting with the teachers, meeting with the stakeholders that are involved with us here. Yes, our assessments, we're working on them because we've raised the bar and we have a lot of work to do, but we are working together collaboratively with meeting with a lot of people. And I tell you, Mr. Speaker, the wonderful stories that I'm hearing around the province every day in our education system about true leadership that's happening in our schools, happening in our community. Those are the stories that we need to be talking about and telling the rest of New Brunswick that there's very good things going on in the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. So I will continue to work with them. I'll have a chance to be able to brief the Minister in the next couple of days with their department to show all the good things that are going on in the Department of Education and let New Brunswickers that we are raising the bar and we are moving forward.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last 12 years, the provincial literacy assessments for grade 2 reading in the English Prime program have gone from a low of 59.4 to a high of 83.6. Since that high, the score has dropped to 73.8. Those are the numbers, but the numbers without context are just numbers. Why has there been a decline in the last 6 years? I would suggest that we should turn to the classroom teachers for their expert opinion. They might not have the complete answer, but we will never get the complete answer without their input. Does the Premier agree that the classroom teachers must be included in fixing our broken system? And would the Premier agree to treat the situation with the sense of urgency that it deserves?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I can't agree with that statement. Our system is not broken. Our system has challenges, but it has lots of opportunities. And what's unfortunate, clearly the Leader of the Opposition has not been briefed, has not taken us up on the invitation to be briefed on the education plans, because he would know that those plans were built by consulting educators. They were built in a nonpartisan way, listening to experts and making sure that we have the best system possible to offer our youth. Mr. Speaker, what I find amazing is that the Leader of the Opposition is getting up to criticize our education plans, but yet when he was the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, their government had zero plans for our education systems, Mr. Speaker. They got up on the floor of the legislature and admitted they had no plan for education. Well, we put one in, listening to teachers and educators across the province, and we're going to support them financially to improve our results, Mr. Speaker. The only plan that the Leader of the Opposition had when he was there was to cut into education.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, classroom composition has been identified as one of the many contributing factors to the assessment results we are discussing. Classroom composition was highlighted by Guy Arsenault of the NBTA. I must assume based on input from the membership. If classroom composition is indeed a factor, we must address that. No problem ever got solved by ignoring it. I believe we need the input of teachers in classroom composition amongst so many other categories. If what they're working with now has little or no chance of success, what would a classroom composition with a good chance of success look like? Will the Premier agree with me that we must ask our classroom teachers what they believe a successful classroom composition should be?
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, bien sûr, nous avons besoin.
The Premier. Yes, of course we have to work with educators in the province. Of course we have to listen to them, and that's what we've been doing to develop our plans for our education system, and that's what the Minister and I are doing by meeting recently hundreds and hundreds of teachers throughout the province to hear their ideas and hear about the system.
He wants to quote the President of the New Brunswick Teachers Association. Well, I have to paraphrase again one of the comments that he made recently. Some of the challenges that we face in our education system right now, Mr. Speaker, are because of the cuts that the former Minister of Finance, the now Leader of the Opposition, made when he was in government. He cut into education, and the President of the NBTA made it clear those cuts are being felt today. Well, Mr. Speaker, luckily, we have a government that is focused on education. We're focused on supporting our teachers and giving them the flexibility that they need, and we will be the government that invests the most in education in the history of our province.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there lies the problem. It's not a money issue. Throwing money at the solution won't fix it. A broken system won't be fixed by throwing money. In fact, in 2003, if you look at the system, in 964 million in education, with enrollment of 120,000. In 2012-13, in that range, we're talking about a $1.4 billion educational budget with an enrollment of 100,000. An increase of 41%, while a decrease in enrollment of 20%. Money will not fix a broken system. It is a complex problem with a complex solution. Part of the solution will come from the teachers who are in the classroom this very moment. But until we give them a voice, until we let them speak out honestly and without fear of their jobs, we cannot fix this broken system. Will the Premier agree to work with me in developing a mechanism by which active teachers can share their knowledge without fear of reprisal? Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Well, there it is, Mr. Speaker. There lies the biggest difference between the Leader of the Opposition and what we're trying to do here as a government, Mr. Speaker. We believe investing strategically and investing more in education is what we need our province to get on the right track. The Leader of the Opposition believes that we can cut our way to prosperity. He believes that we can cut into education and still have a strong economy. He believes that we can cut into education and still have a strong social fabric. But luckily, Mr. Speaker, we do not believe those things. We believe investing in our youth, investing in our education system, investing in training opportunities, and investing in our people is the best investment to get our economy on the right track, and the best investment to make sure we have the best quality of life for all New Brunswickers. Mr. Speaker, today is a great day because it shows the stark choice that New Brunswickers will have in a very short while between a government that will want to cut or a government that will continue to invest in them.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, you want to know why I'm passionate about results? Because the teachers are telling me they can get a better job. All they need to do is be able to teach. So So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know the list of teachers that input into the 10-year plan. Let's hear what they said about the 10-year plan and what specifics they wanted to deliver. Let's let the teachers teach. And why did Guy Arsenault talk about the problems? He said teachers need an opportunity to teach. You're not going to just keep throwing money at it. You need to give them the opportunity for what they were trained for. Mr. Speaker, I say it again. The 10-year plan, it's great to have a document. You need a document with a clear path forward developed by the people that are going to make that clear path. Once again, will you allow the opportunity for teachers to speak openly about the system we have in this province and about the way forward to improve it? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, bien sûr.
Mr. Speaker, of course the teachers are always invited. They're welcome to tell us what we can do to improve the system. In fact, that's how we developed our education plan. I mean, the Minister and I, we sat down with at least 100 teachers in the province, and we asked them what they thought were the challenges and the opportunities. We are listening, and our education plan shows that. We're giving more flexibility to our teachers.
Again, have to stress how today is a great day because it shows the difference between the Leader of the Opposition's philosophy and our philosophy, Mr. Speaker. We believe we have to invest in our youth and in our people. We believe we have to invest more in education. We believe we have to listen to teachers and educators across the province on where to make those investments that will help us get the results that we need in our education system. He believes that we can cut our way to prosperity. We should cut in education and cut in health care. Well, that's not our way, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Oromocto-Lincoln.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And another contrast is that the government and the Premier feels that they can tax their way to prosperity, and that's not a solution for this province either, Mr. Speaker. In all the consultation and all the listening to teachers, a change to early French immersion was not found in the 10-year education plan, yet the government is moving forward regardless of a call by Teachers for Stability. Last week we found that the government does not yet have an implementation plan. The 2012 report on French immersion said for a change to grade 1 to be successful, recruitment, training, language proficiency, and student support services will be needed. Currently, the school districts find it difficult to recruit teachers who can teach in a second language. 1/3, according to the calculations of moving to the new French immersion, 1/3 of English classes will be converted to French immersion classes, and there will be a need for 200 French second language leaders. Mr. Speaker, can the government confirm that it's 200, and can they confirm that they're going to make this a plan in place?
Time. The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we know, earlier is better. And we've heard that from numerous studies, not only here in New Brunswick, but throughout the world, Mr. Speaker. We see examples around the world where we have young students learning 2 or 3 different languages. So we've made a commitment to move forward with early French immersion like it was before, Mr. Speaker. We're going to look at the resources that we need to put in place. We've been in consultation with teachers, throughout the schools, listen to the district superintendents, listen to the principals, and we will do the right thing to make sure that we have the proper composition of our teachers throughout the province and be able to have the best education system moving forward here in New Brunswick. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Oromocto-Lincoln.
Speaker, the school districts, Anglophone District West in particular, and the teachers have said they do not want a change in the early French immersion. The government says they're listening to teachers. Why will you not listen to teachers and keep stability in the school system and not make this change at this point? Currently, school districts are finding it difficult now to recruit teachers, to be able to teach in second language and also to have the proficiency. We have school districts that are hiring non-teachers because they speak French, yet they're not trained in teaching. This is a current problem. The 2012 report says that in order to address this, recruitment and training and proficiency will need to be put in place. There is no implementation plan by the government at this point. This change will require 200 teachers to be moved from the English language program to the French immersion program. Can the government confirm this, and how is the government planning to address this concern?
Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite has some numbers that he came up with 200 numbers. 200 places that he's looking at, Mr. Speaker. We have our own internal numbers that we are looking at. We've also talked with the NBTA in this case, Mr. Speaker. So we're analyzing that where we're going forward. Mr. Speaker, we're going to be putting the resources in the right places to be able to make sure that we're going to be able to have implementation of this program. It's going to take some time to be able to come up with the exact numbers here, and that's what we're doing as a government. We're doing this right. We're doing the proper consultation, and when we have the proper information, we'll be able to release it to the government, to the New Brunswickers. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say again, earlier is better. We do believe that. We've made a platform commitment on that, and we've also consulted with people throughout the province over the last number of years. Mr. Speaker, we do believe that what we're doing now is going to be putting the right resources in the right place. It will be challenging, we understand that, but we're going to work with New Brunswickers to get this thing done, and we will have the best education system moving forward.
Member for Oromocto-Lincoln.
Mr. Speaker, well, this says it all. The government says that they've consulted, or that they're consulting. They've already consulted on the 10-year plan, and there's no mention of a change to the early French immersion. Teachers have already told this government to maintain stability, like they told the previous government. As well, the minister cannot provide any numbers on how many teachers this will require, this change. I've calculated that this will require 200 teachers to be converted from the English program to the French program. Teachers that will need to be speaking in the second language is French and trained in that regard. So the minister has not provided the numbers. As well, they have no implementation plan. This is the concern of the opposition and of the teachers, the chaos this is creating and will create when there is no plan in place. In addition, we need to have additional student support services to make sure that the streaming effect is addressed. This is a key question in 2012. Can the minister tell us how the government is planning to address these concerns? What is the resource in place, and where's the implementation plan?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it's really hard to tell if the opposition is coming or going today. First off, they want to criticize our education plans. They didn't even have education plans. Their only education plan had to do with the former Minister of Finance cutting into education. Mr. Speaker, we have the Leader of the Opposition, I would say irresponsibly getting up saying that our education systems are broken. And then we have the former Minister of Education getting up saying that they want stability. So if they believe that the system is broken, which we don't, but if they believe the system is broken, Mr. Speaker, why would they be advocating for stability? Mr. Speaker, they don't know if they're coming or going. I suggest that they have a caucus meeting and discuss what they want to talk about here on the floor of the legislature. We know, and it's clear for us, we're going to invest more in education, we're going to invest more in health care, and we're going to invest in the people of New Brunswick to ensure that we have a strong economy and a strong social fabric. We will not cut like the Leader of the Opposition would like us to do.
Member for Fredericton York.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. The Premier needs to stop getting Len Hoyt to draft his answers here in the House. Since the 2014 election, our province has lost 300 jobs. There is, in fact, no job growth, but instead job shrinkage. The Gallant government spent a lot of time and a huge amount of money rebuilding and rebranding job creation in our province. The result of all this time and money was an agency called Opportunities New Brunswick. This new Crown Corporation has yet to present any sort of report to this House. Mr. Speaker, over halfway through their mandate, and this government's own creation, tasked with job creation, has yet to file a report. Is that because they have not actually created any jobs yet? When will this government file a report in this House?
The Honourable the Premier.
Monsieur le Président, premièrement,
Mr. Speaker, first of all, Opportunities New Brunswick is doing great work. It's an agency which is working very, very hard, and they've signed agreements for thousands of jobs that are being created here in the province. And we are looking forward to seeing the member of the opposition doing his research when it comes to announcements already made and others.
In the province, I think it's important to note that there's actually an increase in jobs since the mandate. It's 2,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker. And I think it's really important to note that in the last 5 months, we have seen some good job numbers come out of Statistics Canada, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we had in July 5,000 jobs that were added to the economy, 1,200 added in June, 4,400 added in September, Mr. Speaker. And it's really unfortunate to see the opposition focus on some of the challenges, and there are some. Why wouldn't they mention all the good things that New Brunswickers are doing and New Brunswick businesses are getting done right here in the province, Mr. Speaker?
Member for Fredericton York.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier talks about doing his homework, and he quoted a figure in this House, and that's a very interesting figure that the Premier is quoting. And I'd ask the Premier, would he like to tell this House how this figure he is claiming can actually be verified? Are people actually working at these jobs? We have the research of Statistics New Brunswick as a foundation for our figures. What verification can the Premier provide for his? Statistics Canada website indicates that in September of 2014 there were 354,100 jobs here in our province. That same agency reported last Friday that there are now 353,800 jobs in our province. That is a difference of minus 300 jobs so far in this Premier's mandate. The numbers are online and easily accessed and verifiable. How can the Premier justify his figures?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I haven't seen any stats come out of Statistics New Brunswick, but when it comes to Statistics Canada, I can quote the numbers, Mr. Speaker. The opposition, we've had this debate 100 times already. The opposition wants to use the numbers from September 2014. We were not able to make one decision regarding government until October 7th, Mr. Speaker. So, of course, we use the 351,000.8 jobs, Mr. Speaker, and we now find ourselves at 353.8 thousand jobs. So, yes, Mr. Speaker, there's been 2,000 added since the mandate. Now, what's important to note is there are still challenges, and we're not going to pretend there aren't, Mr. Speaker. There are still economic challenges facing New Brunswick and the country. But we're working so hard with businesses and job creators across the province, and they're doing a great job, Mr. Speaker. We've seen that in June, July, August. In the last 5 months, Mr. Speaker, we have created 5,400 more jobs in the province.
Member for Fredericton York.
Perhaps a little less time in Davos and a little more time working for the people of New Brunswick would be in order. Mr. Speaker, in September of 2014, Statistics Canada reported that there were 354,100 jobs in New Brunswick. On Friday, Statistics Canada reported, as I've said before, that there are 353,800 jobs in New Brunswick. There are now 300 fewer jobs than in September of 2014. Put another way, Mr. Speaker, our province has not gained a single job since September 22nd of 2014. Instead, our province has lost 300 jobs. The Premier promised to create 5,000 jobs, new jobs, in the first year of his government. He has not created a single new job. Instead, he has lost. He promised 10,000 jobs over the 4 years. How does the Premier explain the loss of jobs so far?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, on October of 2014, there were 351,800 jobs in the province. In October of 2016, there were 353,800 jobs in the province. That is 2,000 jobs that were created during our mandate, Mr. Speaker. Now, does that mean we do not still face, does that mean that we not face economic challenges? No, not at all. We have challenges, Mr. Speaker. We acknowledge that. And we can feel it. We know New Brunswick businesses are working so hard to overcome these challenges and seize opportunities that are here before us, Mr. Speaker. The whole country is facing economic challenges. But what I like to focus on is the fact that in the last 5 months, there have been 5,400 jobs added to the New Brunswick economy because of the hard work of New Brunswickers, because of the hard work of job creators, and as their government will do whatever we can to support them in ensuring we have a strong and vibrant economy right here in the province, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Moncton Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia Premier McNeil is on record as stating that Nova Scotia will not implement a carbon tax as he stands up for Nova Scotians. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Ball backed up his Environment Minister for walking out on carbon tax talks as they speak out in support of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall has used perhaps the strongest language as he stands up for his people against the Trudeau ultimatum on carbon tax. And just last week he wrote a blistering letter to Saskatchewan's Federal Minister Goodell. But here in New Brunswick, the Premier his caucus, and all 10 federal Liberal MPs have betrayed New Brunswickers and are standing up for Trudeau and standing up for the carbon tax. Will the Premier explain why he is betraying and turning his back on New Brunswickers?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, our priority is the economy, but we have to do it in a sustainable way. We have to develop our economy in a responsible way, which means we have to do our part to fight climate change.
Is by far this generation's most important and significant challenge, and we all have to step up and do more. Mr. Speaker, no decisions have been made yet. We had a great process with the steering committee made up of all political parties represented in the legislature, going around and listening to New Brunswickers. New Brunswickers were clear. They want us to step up and do more to combat climate change, all the while growing the economy. They were also clear they wanted us to look at a pricing mechanism on carbon. And Mr. Speaker, we just cannot agree with the opposition's tactic or strategy of fighting the Trudeau government. We believe the Trudeau government's focus on growth is right for New Brunswick. We want to work with them to grow the economy, combat climate change, and invest in our people.
Member for Moncton Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, our province depends on agriculture. Agriculture is going to be hit hard by a carbon tax. Our province depends on trucking, and trucking will be hit hard by a carbon tax. Our province depends on forestry. Forestry is going to be hit hard with a carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, these industries and countless more are already taxed out. They've been hit with higher business property tax, income tax and fuel tax, corporate income tax, HST tax, a huge increase in workers' comp, and the looming CPP hike as well. Jobs continue to be the number one concern for the people of New Brunswick. Does the Premier agree that his carbon tax, on top of all these others, won't have a negative impact on job creation?
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois.
Mr. Speaker, once again, no decision has been made. We appreciated the work of all the parties represented on the committee as to how we can do more to fight climate change. We received the recommendations, and soon we will do everything we can as a province to not only grow the economy but also fight climate change.
Very odd to have the member opposite, who I think is still the critic of social development, maybe they've changed, speak to the carbon pricing mechanisms that we are looking at, and also in the same breath, Mr. Speaker, criticize the fact that we have raised the taxes on the 1% richest in New Brunswick to pay and invest in education and health care. Mr. Speaker, it's odd that I remember him getting up speaking against the minimum wage increases, which is just odd, Mr. Speaker. You would think he would understand the importance for those who are working, trying to make it happen in the province, and for them to be against the free tuition, helping those that need it most get the education.
Mr. Premier. Member for Moncton Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, and you know what? As a critic for social development, I do understand that. And far too many New Brunswick families are getting by from one paycheck to the next, or in a lot of cases not getting by, Mr. Speaker. These are not just lower income New Brunswickers. These are all New Brunswickers of many income levels, all of them taxed to the max. A carbon tax will push these New Brunswick families over the financial brink. Does the Premier agree that a carbon tax will increase the cost of living for these families, be it low-income, medium, or high-income families? The low-income families are already suffering, and he wants to make them suffer even more. Does the Premier agree that food and heating and electricity will all rise because of a revenue-grabbing carbon tax?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite wants to get up and talk about those who are living paycheck to paycheck, where was he when we were introducing free tuition to families, Mr. Speaker, that would be struggling to be able to go and pursue university or college education? Where was he when the Leader of the Opposition was criticizing us taxing the 1% richest so we can invest more in education and health care, Mr. Speaker? Where was he when his party, Mr. Speaker, were opposing the minimum wage increases? Where was he when we were working with the Trudeau government to enhance CPP for New Brunswickers, Mr. Speaker? And where was he when we offered the most generous HST rebate to the low and middle class families in the province, Mr. Speaker? So where is the opposition? Where is the opposition when we're working hard to help New Brunswickers that are struggling, to help New Brunswickers that are living paycheck to paycheck? I'll tell you where they are. They're advocating for us to cut in education. They're advocating for us to cut in health care, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Riverview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are now on the 8th day of November, and still the Finance Department has not issued the supplementary employee lists and the supplementary supplier lists. They are way, way overdue. And for the benefit of the taxpayers who would like to know why these lists are so important, these lists reveal the hiring done by the government, and the supplier list gives us a more accurate picture of how many tens of millions of taxpayers' dollars have been spent by this government on self-promotion, advertising consultants, and Liberal friends. So can the minister responsible for spending and finance lists tell us why these lists have not been produced?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we do not have this list yet, but I will do my very best to provide this list to the member opposite and make it available just as soon as possible. Thank you.
Time for oral questions has expired.